Okay, so, whoa, sorry. So this is Group A, and I'm going to talk about each piece. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments or message me directly. And yeah, let's just roll. So let's see here. The first piece is actually four pages from a sketchbook. They are, I'm going to say, about a dozen years old. It was basically a fundraiser, I think, and the way it worked was the local record shop, Backstreet Records, had a bin of, basically giveaway records or, free records. And artists could come in, find one that they liked, and then take it away. And I think most people were doing paintings with the vinyl inside or with the jacket, or, there was one year I did a sculpture of a Journey album where I took the jacket apart and the various components, and I think I cut the record apart as well. I made this kind of crazy rotating sculpture where it looked like the members of the band were skydiving as they rotated around. So yeah, that was what I did one year. Another year, I got a record that was by an American evangelical pastor, and it was about his experience at the hospital. And I think I'm not really sure what the purpose of the record was to be, just maybe, comforting his aging audience, or just sharing his experience of the American healthcare system in what looked like the 1960s. Anyway, I was a bit perplexed by that album, so I took it home and looked it over, and the vibe I kind of got from it, and just my own antipathy, I guess, towards evangelicals, led me to basically make a comic that was just broken up into panels painted onto the vinyl. So it was a circular piece. And each panel describes what his actual experience might have been like in the American healthcare system, i.e., terrible. So, this is a sketch of, I think it's a full-size sketch, pretty much, of what the different pieces would look like. And if you look closely, you can see there's this one says tests, loss of faith, infection, and so on. All the kind of terrible things that might happen to you in the hospital. So that was kind of an initial sketch, and as you can see, I took some markers and kind of blocked in some color just to see what that might look like. And then on the back page, we have a couple of kind of sketchy details of a couple of the pieces. There's one here that says nobody cares, one here that says loss of faith, where he's being sick. And then if we go to the next page, more sketches of details, one on infections, and one on, this one says, visited by his fears. I'll turn that around. So he's kind of having some nightmares there. And then the last page, as you can see, it's very colorful because I was doing a lot of color marker tests on my sketch page for some reason. I couldn't just get another page to... Anyway, this is you can see a pencil up here of tests, and then down here it says, "We will all die alone." How uplifting. Jesus Christ. Anyway, I assume I'll be getting bids on that one from the depressed people in the audience, which could be a fair number of you. I don't know. So that's whatever that one was called. I don't even know. We'll call that. I don't know what we'll call that. Hospital experience, maybe. Okay. So now we're getting into more traditional comics. This was a story from, I believe, the last issue of Dregs called Consumption. And it was basically me getting, basically me complaining about the comics industry at the time in the late 90s. It was a pretty depressing place. And there was a lot of, just a lot of gimmicks in comics, all the variant covers that didn't really add any value to anything. Um, Foils and die cuts and all this, poly bags and trading cards and all this other bullshit that they were trying to package comics with as a way to also, I suppose, get comics collectors into collecting other stuff that the parent company also owned and so on. Anyway, so I wrote this comic called Consumption, and it still is, I think, one of the longer comics I've ever made, something like 16 pages. Um, and I'm not sure why I did the first page at this, kind of 9 by 12 size. Um, decent inking job for me, especially at that time. My favorite bit here is the slogan for the comic shop he's going to, which is called the Comics Trough. It's a real Android's Dungeon kind of place. Their slogan is, "We only stock the books that sell, and all the rest can go to hell." I think we all know a comic shop like that or two. Um, no shade to the many excellent comic shops that also exist out there. This is not about you. So this is at this point in my kind of creative workflow, I was penciling, doing roughs and penciling on paper, scanning, and inking. Well, as you can see, I kind of inked this one on paper, but I'll bet I finished it up in Photoshop. And that's probably what I did on subsequent pages. Or I inked on film, which is something else I was doing at the time. Mostly because I was just so terrified of inking straight onto the original artwork. I fucked it up so much in my early years that it gave me a bit of a complex. So I was always looking for ways to get around inking. Anyway, here's page 2. These are just pencils on larger drawing paper. It's like 10 by 14 probably. And this is where I go in and meet the comic shop owner. I'm asking what's good. He's too busy to talk to me. He points me to a new kind of grim and gritty comic that in the story I look at it and realize this really sucks, and I've basically paid $20 for nothing. I go back into the store and I say, "Hey man, this comic sucks," and I couldn't even see how much it sucks until I opened the bag, and the guy's like, "You opened it?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I opened it." And the premise of the story basically is that some of these comics have become so ridiculously collectible that they don't even get opened or read. And I get so incensed by this in the story that I not only have I opened it, I tear it up in front of the guy, and he's horrified. And other kids in the store are like, "Oh my god, this crazy old man is tearing up a comic book in front of us." And then there's a kind of a little break, time passes. I come back into the store again, and there's this shout of people go, "There he is!" And the comic that I tore up is framed up on the wall of the store, and like the owner says, oh, he would never sell it, but the market on torn comics is going through the roof. Like, people are tearing up their comics artisanally. So, hence the satire. Anyway, so that's where the story goes. And at the end of the story, which is the next bit of pages, this is actually 2 pages, for some reason back on 9x12 paper, butted together. Well, actually, I know exactly why. It's because I was always trying to draw to the size that I was going to copy. So I probably, I did this basically at full size. This is what it got copied at. I inked on film over this, I'm pretty sure. And then I would basically just take the inked version, put it on the photocopier, and I was always trying to get the best possible fidelity from photocopying. I didn't like to do 2nd or 3rd generation copies if possible, so that's why a lot of my original art has kind of a weird aspect ratio sometimes, FYI. So these are the last 2 pages of the story, where I'm at a signing table in the shop now, and I'm signing kids' torn up comics, and like giving them little rips myself. And anyway, I'm getting a percentage of the shop. There's some little self in jokes there. There's a guy, an adult, the only adult in the line, is a guy who talked to me in a show in Montreal, who said, "Do you draw erotic?" That was his only question. "Do you draw erotic?" And I was like, I mean, not specifically, but if it's part of the story, sure. And he was like, I think he was looking for, more of a pinup artist. Anyway, so that's the last 2 pages of Consumption. They're taped together on the back. So, I mean, I think it makes sense to keep them together. But once it's out of my hands. Okay, so next up, another series from this one's from the early 2000s. It was called Doomed Love. Very influenced by the likes of High Fidelity. Stories of, and very, very influenced by the impending dissolution of my first marriage as well, where I was doing a lot of writing about guys who were just trying to figure it out, and I'm always, partially because of my own weird brain, I'm always just kind of fascinated by relationships and how people get together or come apart. So anyway, Doomed Love was a series that ran in the Dear Departed Here magazine, an arts and entertainment tabloid that some people created in St. John for a little while. And my contributions to that were a bit inconsistent, and unfortunately the publishing of them was a bit inconsistent, so we parted ways after a while, and I kind of lost interest in doing that kind of story. I kind of felt after a while, I was like, okay, yeah, I've said what I need to say here. But there's a few, I think there's a few good jokes and a few good drawings in them, so I'm comfortable letting people see them. Doomed Love, this one I call it Tim Callow. Or no, this one's called Synchronicity. And it's actually 2 pages. Here they are. And because all this film is, I printed out the title, which I made in Illustrator, and the dialogue, which I guess I actually had a typeface made of my own handwriting at that time. So that's what the film is. The film is just the dialogue, Kyle Baker style, at the bottom of the panels. And the art is just penciled and inked and washed. So that is actually just a self-contained art piece underneath the dialogue. And same deal for the second page. So that's kind of cool. And then this second Doom love story is called Tim Callow, although it doesn't say that anywhere on there. And this one there wasn't room for the title, but again, very Kyle Bakery. I was very influenced by books like Why I Hate Saturn and The Cowboy Wally Show. And probably even TV at the time. Like, there was a lot of young folks hanging out, figuring out relationships on TV, thanks to the success of Friends and whatnot. So those are the Doomed Love pages. Dregs was my first kind of anthology mini comic, and it ran for 4 issues as a mini comic, and then I did 2 more issues as a maxi comic. I guess it was a magazine size, 11 by 17 pages folded. And this is the pencils for the cover of the last issue number 6. You can faintly see there's a little banner where it says "Going Out of Business." I seem to be looting some kind of a joke shop. I'm wearing clown shoes and googly eye glasses, and I'm carrying a box which is labeled Hamdingers, which is a Mystery Science Theater 3000 joke. So, not a bad drawing, I think. But anyway, I forget. I think I forget how that was inked. Might have been film again. But anyway, that's the original art, and it was done on a magazine backing board. Okay, so this is a pencil drawing of one panel of one episode of a webcomic that I used to make called Entropia. It was based on a play, which itself was basically just a surreal, dystopian TV kind of sitcom about a guy who wanted to be a TV sitcom writer. His weird android roommate, who might not actually be an android, he might just be a delusional human being who drinks oil and stuff, and his kind of punishing girlfriend. And it's safe to say I was working through some stuff when I wrote that, because I had kind of a punishing girlfriend. But anyway, it was a wacky series, a bit ahead of my own abilities as an artist, I think. And like so many projects of mine, I tried it for a while and kind of got tired of the pressure that I put on myself to publish it on a certain schedule and reach a certain quality level and all that sort of thing. And of course, I didn't have the patience to just build up a, a backlog of them so that I could have a bit of breathing room. That's not how ADHD works, I'm afraid. Anyway, so this is this page tells me it's episode 12, panel 1 of Entropia. That will mean nothing to almost everyone. Not a bad drawing though. It's a hover taxi flying over the Omega Corp headquarters. Omega Corp is the kind of company that runs the world in the story. Their slogan, I believe, is "Consume and Live." Anyway, so yeah, that's just a sketch page that I liked. I think that would have gotten scanned and then finished. It was definitely finished digitally because all the inks were digital on that webcomic. I'm gonna put that on the side as well. This is a cover from a zine, an app zine called Regular Zine, which was my last regular zine title. I used to change them up every year or two. It ran for, I think, a couple dozen installments, and this was the cover for number 3. As you can see, it is a sexy drawing of Betty and Veronica. And before you go calling me a perv, the drawing is by Dan DeCarlo himself, the legendary Archie artist, who I would say is the definitive Betty and Veronica artist. He also created Josie, of Josie and the Pussycats, named her after his own wife. That drawing, the original drawing was rejected by Archie because it was too sexy. And rightfully so. Mr. DeCarlo, also, like many artists of his generation, also used to do cartoons for the men's magazines, and he was no stranger to sexy pinup drawings. And sometimes that bled into the Archie comics a bit. Not surprisingly, lots of little boys, I think, were activated by his drawings of Betty and Veronica and Josie. So as I like to do sometimes, I found the pencils of that drawing in a book and thought, oh, this will be fun to try inking, and scan them, and this is the result. It's me inking over Dan DeCarlo. And you won't see too many originals of mine like that, because I don't really do it that much. I've done it with Kirby a few times. Always a challenge. Anyway. Next up, we have a drawing from another project that I kind of tried for a while and dropped. What was it called? The Throat Unripp'd, I think. Oh, there's peanut butter. Hey, baby. So I was going to do a similar thing, but the stories were all going to be about Roadhouse. And of course, anyone who knows me knows that I have a history with the movie Roadhouse because of Christmas parties where we all watch Roadhouse and so on. So I started a blog for a little while called the Throat Unripp'd, and I did I wrote a few installments, and this was an illustration that I did for it. Because I believe one of the installments was going to be from the point of view of Doc's weird tablecloth dress. So this is an illustration of the dress in blue pencil and then done over with like a red Sharpie brush or something. So, and there's a bit of pencil sketching up in there, which I didn't bother erasing. Anyway. Oh my god, I've been at this for half an hour. So next up, we have the pencils for a one-page story that appears in a fairly, I say recent, it's from like 8 years ago. I did a one-shot comic called Microdose, where all the stories are only 1 page long. And this story is, I forget what it's called even, a message from your provincial government or something like that. And it's a satire of some commercials that were being shown on TV at the time, when it was shortly after cannabis was legalized. And it's basically a commercial where a middle-aged dad is hanging out in the kitchen with his teenage daughter, and the daughter is basically fishing for, what's his attitude about marijuana. And the commercial is saying, okay, this is the critical moment as a parent. You got to model responsibly how you talk to them about cannabis and stuff. And in the comic, it's basically just the dad getting paranoid because he is high, and he's like, oh shit, she knows. Ha ha, very funny. So yeah, that's the pencils for that story. It's actually, if you look closely, you'll see it's a bunch of cut out panels that I pasted onto a piece of art paper. But I also sketched it out in advance on a single page of a sketchbook. And that original rough is included as well. Just for the hell of it. Why not? Next up is a favorite old drawing of mine. I see that it's from 1997, and that is a portrait from a photo of Philip K. Dick, the great science fiction writer, and one of his many cats is posing with there. And that is on 10 by 15, fairly lightweight paper. Same size paper, a bit heavier weight maybe. This is a comic from Dregs 5 or 6, I'm not sure which. It'll be on the website. It's called Blocked, and it's basically just a single page comic, single page, single panel, just one big panel, which I don't do a whole lot. But for whatever reason, I remember on the day doing this, and just having one of these days where it felt like nothing was going right. So I basically made a single page comic about that called Blocked, where it says, "The drawing board is cold and hard. The pencil is long and sharp, and time pours out like blood." Goodness. Very serious. Next up, another comic. This one is 30 years old. It's called Rock On, and it's basically me being a crank about some of my favorite bands and artists in the 80s selling out in the 90s. Anyway, that that fun little strip called Golden Alternative Greed, or Rock On, is that can be yours. Next up, we have these are pencils from an abandoned graphic novel called The Last Day, and I only did a few. I think the idea, the reason for the weird size, I think the idea was that it was going to run as a webcomic first, hence the horizontal aspect ratio. But I only wound up doing a few pages. I don't know if I really did any totally finished pages. The premise of the story was that a guy wakes up and he suddenly has this gnosis that it is his last day on Earth. He will die that day, somehow. He doesn't know how. But he knows, he just knows. He will not have another day. And it freaks him out, as it would. And he, scrambles around trying to, say some goodbyes and, maybe talk to a priest and just try and find out. Like, he talks to a shrink at one point. He's trying to find out what the hell. And eventually he's resigned to, he at the end of the crazy day, he's like, well, I don't know what else to do except go to sleep. I'm exhausted. I'm stressed out. I'm just going to have to, I guess I must die in my sleep. And I guess that's how it is. So he goes to sleep and he wakes up the next day. And he is certain it is his last day. And it keeps going on like this. So that was the idea. And I wrote it longer than I drew it. I kind of had some ideas where it was going to go, how it was going to end, but I didn't really get the head of steam going that I needed to really execute, I guess. Aspects of that story are actually recycled in a comic that I'm working on right now called Return of the Tesla Twins. But there isn't really any more that I can say beyond that. Mostly because it isn't done, there's still lots to do, lots of writing to do on that one. Okay, we are at the last piece of Group A. This is a funny one. So earlier you saw the cover for issue 6 of Dregs, the last issue, where I was looting the joke shop. Issue 5 was called the Unauthorized Autobiography issue, and the theme was that all of the stories were somewhat autobiographical. And I had come up with this hilarious, edgy cover idea where I was going to be shooting ink into my veins like heroin. But it was ink, because I'm a cartoonist, I'm hardcore. And so I drew it out on Bristol and inked it up and did not like the result. And here is the result that I did not like. This is the original cover for Dregs number 5. Not good. Not great, right? Kind of a shitty drawing. Lettering's not too bad. Anyway. Why are you trying to sell me a piece you hate, you ask? Well, here's the thing. You've seen how some of the other pieces I was also selling, like the original first try or the original sketch or whatever. That's what this is. You're also getting the real one, which was done on film. I redrew it, inked on film, 2 films, in fact. I'm going to open this up. So it's a 2-part film. There you can see there's some white corrections as well. There I am, being the edgy boy, injecting that ink. I got my drawing table and everything behind me. And so that was one film, and that was I basically did this so that I could cheaply incorporate color into the cover. So this was black, and then the photocopier I was using had built-in blue, and I think maybe also red. But this was blue. So I basically would copy the same page twice, once in black, and then once with this blue layer. There's even a bit of zipatone there, so that I had blue jeans on the cover. So dumb. Anyway, all that can be yours for a mere $50. I kid, but I actually do like the final cover. I think I'm pleased with the drawing itself, and I'm amused by how it got there. Anyway, there you go. That is the last of Group A, and I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm going to go through Group B. I got to turn those off.